Beware of what you become in pursuit of what you want. Hello and welcome to the Unlocked podcast with me, Ricky Locke, the podcast which is my adventure into unlocking how to be the best version of ourselves and live an extraordinary life. In this episode, I'm discussing the famous quote by Jim Rohn, beware of what you become in pursuit of what you want. Now, for regular listeners of this podcast, you will know that I am a big fan of Jim Rohn and his famous work in the self-development world and the self-improvement world. And I often talk about him in a lot of my episodes, and even the first episode I ever released, which was What Fuels Your Boat, I discussed his idea of it's not the blowing of the winds, but it's the set of your sail. But today, I want to discuss that idea of beware of what you become in pursuit of what you want. The reason that I'm doing this is because over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the idea of setting huge, massive goals, not SMART goals, which was the great episode by David Heiner. But I've often thinking about a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, and I've noticed recently that maybe a little bit of burnout, maybe a bit of slipping. And that's not just due to the tiredness of having an 11-week-old daughter. I notice there's a few extra spelling mistakes on a lot of my posts at the minute, which is more than usual, but that's probably down to tiredness. But I want to talk about the idea of this because I'm really conscious that I've made a public commitment recently about I want to be a TedX speaker. I want to have this podcast in the top 10 of the self-improvement category in the Apple Podcast for the UK. Now, these are big dreams and big ambitions, but it's really important to me that as well as being focused, driven, and obsessed with my business and all the things I'm working on, and whilst they are fantastic behaviours and fantastic characteristics and traits to have, it's really important to also have a life, but also not lose that authentic side of yourself. Now, if I can explain this, most listeners will know there's three kind of avenues, I guess, to my business or in what I'm doing. I have the speaking career that I'm building to become an international speaker. I have my magic business where I perform at weddings and events all across the country. And then I have this podcast. Now, that's three pretty big, chunky things to focus on already. So throw in the mix of juggling the business of speaking, the business of magic, running an effective and successful podcast, looking after my own social life, personal life, my own mental health, and also a daughter, which is a big responsibility. So one of the things that I'm really conscious of at the minute in this journey is about I've got to make sure that whilst I'm focused on these big dreams and aspirations, I don't want to lose myself. And I've got to stay true to what's important to me. So what are my beliefs and what are my values? What do I hold dear to myself that makes Ricky, Ricky? And I'm really conscious that I don't want to turn into that person that is completely obsessed and driven. Now, over the last couple of weeks, I've had lots of great conversations. I've been quite busy in the office. And whilst I do a lot of the stuff that I'm fortunate to do a lot of this from home, obviously my daughter is obviously growing up at this time and I want to make sure I have that perfect balance. But I don't want to get to that point where I am burning out because I'm spending too much time working in the office. I'm spending too much time developing myself and exploring and going through research and reading lots of books and interviewing wonderful guests. These are all important things. But the learning here is about, actually, are you still being Ricky throughout this? Because I have noticed over the last couple of weeks where, Danielle may say, are you nearly finished? Yes, Danielle, I'll be down in 1 minute. 1 minute turns into 10 minutes. 10 minutes turns into half hour turns into an hour. And then before you know it, I'm thinking, why have I just done this? I should be stopping work, having boundaries, and I should be going downstairs and enjoying life with my family or even going for a nice walk. And instead, I chose to be a little bit erratic, a little bit obsessed. And I am pretty obsessed with my business, like most business owners and entrepreneurs are. I think it's one of my hobbies. I love improving. I love finding clients. I love getting work. I love all the behind the scenes stuff that you don't see, building a profile, building a presence. But it's really important to every now and then to just stop, take a sensor check and just think, beware of what you become. Because I think a couple of years ago, when I first started to launch the magic business, I remember that I had a full-time career Monday to Friday, magic business on the weekends, on the evenings. There is a point where I think I became a little bit boring because I couldn't go out. I couldn't do anything. If my friends or family said, would you like, let's have a meetup or should we go out? I would say I can't. I'm at an event or I'm performing this weekend. So then it gets to this point where you think, wait, I didn't initially start out this to become boring, and whilst there's, my lifelong dream and ambition to be a professional speaker, be a professional magician is really great, there also needs to be that balance. It is quite funny actually at the minute because I see it a lot on Instagram where a lot of those funny memes, which is I left the 9 to 5 to launch my own business and now I'm working 24 hours a day, which is true. But I think that's the joy of being in a business. It's different hours and you get so obsessed with it. But what I'm really kind of putting that message out there is, as Jim Rohn says, beware of what you become in pursuit of what you want. Whilst it's really important for me and for everyone out there to have those big dreams and ambitions, every now and then just stop, take a step back, look at what you're doing. Where are you going? Is it fitting with your beliefs? Is it fitting with your values? It's really important to me right now that as I proceed with this business, I need to make sure that my daughter doesn't grow up thinking, yeah, he was great, a fantastic dad, but yeah, half the time in the living room, he was just on his phone scrolling through LinkedIn or scrolling through Instagram. Or I wouldn't want to be remembered if something drastic and horrible, and sorry to be like macabre here, but if something was really bad and something happened tomorrow, I don't want to be remembered as he was just in his office all the time, working late hours. It's important, isn't it, to take that step back every now and then and just think about, well, what is it we're really doing here and who is it that I'm becoming? Because I do appreciate that if I'm going to be a TEDx speaker, if I'm going to have a podcast that goes into the top 10, then there is probably going to be some behavior changes or some habits that might change, and I might have to become a slightly different person. Now, not necessarily a different person, but maybe I might need to do things differently. And I don't really want to be working double time or triple time, but I need to make sure that it fits around everything that I believe in, my values, me as a person being authentic from start to finish. I don't want to be that person that has these big dreams and then stays up till midnight. And then the next morning I wake up and I'm just this groggy, miserable shit, right? I don't want to do that because that's going to then have an impact on my daughter, Danielle. She probably won't want to marry me this year. There's another thing to put into that. So yeah, it's really important to every now and then just take a minute to just step back and just think about, beware of what you become in pursuit of what you want. Whatever your dream, whatever your ambition is, if you have listened to the last couple of episodes all about setting big goals, huge, massive goals, it is really important every now and then to just be aware, have that self-awareness of who are you actually becoming in pursuit of what you want. A classic thing you've seen here is, I think, when you look at movies and you see those people that grew up from nothing, become multi-millionaires, and then they become this really snooty, miserable, stuck-up person. And that's probably not who they were. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be me. I hope not. Bloody hell not. But I really want to make sure that from this point on, whatever I'm going to do, I need to be aware of who I become and what I become in pursuit of what I want to do. So that's the message of this week's episode. Have a think, whatever it is you're doing in your career, in your business, or in your life, take a sensor check right now, step back and think about who is it that you are actually becoming in pursuit of what you're actually trying to do this year and beyond. Thank you for listening to this episode. As always, a huge shout out to the patrons of this podcast, Anthony Howe, Sherry Brenton, Steve McDermott and Rory Barnes. If you would love to be a patron, I'm going to be releasing free trainings every single month. My first one coming up is going to be all about how to goal set. Yeah, how to set some amazing goals and also how to improve your memory. And these are going to be in just for exclusive members of the patron community of the Unlock podcast. If you would like to find out more on how you can join from as little as just £1 a month, £1 a month, and you can support this podcast, head to the link in the show notes. But as always, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you did enjoy it, head over to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser and now Spotify, because you can now leave ratings, and together we will get this podcast to the top 10. And don't forget, if you leave your Instagram handle in the review that you write, I will shout about your review all over social media because you're wonderful. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. Have a wonderful day wherever you are. And remember, beware of what you become in pursuit of what you want. Goodbye.